Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are subscribed to my channel, which by the way you should be, subscribe, do those things, make sure you get my videos every week. You'll know that I didn't vlog last week. Missed you guys, missed checking in on YouTube, but I do have some great news. I'm sure you all saw, because I made sure the whole world fucking knew, but I passed my driving test. I was buzzing, guys. I'll do a little story time before we get into this week's video. So I sat my driving test last Thursday. I had obviously taken the week off YouTube. Elle's pottering around if you can hear her. She always gets very interested when I start vlogging. Do you want to say hi? Oh, hello. You're so sweet, Elle. You're like a little bear. So I had my driver's test on the Thursday, which was the 12th of May, and I basically cornered off my whole week. I was just driving tests or lessons. My instructor, I had him on call in case he got cancellations, but we had 4 booked in. We were doing so much driving. Every single night I went out and I practiced my reverse around the corner and my turnabout, because those are the two big things that everyone says you have to, once you nail them you're probably fine. You might get a few marks on other places, but you should be okay. I'm going to be doing my makeup while this video is going on, by the way. So anyway, I was practicing them so much, so glad I did, because the corner that I ended up doing my reverse around, I think I probably had practiced on it before, maybe once or twice with my instructor, but a long time ago, because I did all my lessons pretty much in I did half of them in 2018, and then I did the other half when we got the car in 2020, and then nothing up until the 4 lessons I did before my test. And oh, this is the best, this Bobbi Brown, the vitamin enriched face base. It's not a makeup video today, but I will say this shit, when you put this on your face, it just feels so good. Got to the test center. I went out that morning with my instructor. He was like, look, we'll go out the morning of, and we'll, kind of tweak some stuff, make sure you're driving okay. I'll give you some pointers. I actually drove not great that morning. He was like, you're rushing a bit. I think I was a bit nervous, but I think it was good. I think I got all my nervousness out in in that one pre-test kind of, because then by the time I got there to do my test, so this was gas, right? So a few days beforehand I turned up to the test center and I saw this one instructor, because I was I would always meet my instructor at the test center, and I saw this guy who worked for the NDLS or whatever, or the RSA, I guess, not the NDLS. He was doing the test, and not doing the test, he was facilitating the test. He was an instructor. Oh God, I can't speak today, sorry. Anyway, I was like, oh, he seems really sound. I just thought I could overhear him talking to someone, and I was like, oh, he seems very calming energy, and I was like, I'm gonna get him. And then I got him. I was so happy. When I was waiting to sit my test, you obviously wait outside, and I saw him walk in, and he had a bottle of Lucozade in his hand, and I was like, he's coming off his lunch. Oh my God, he's gonna take me. I was at 12:20, and then he called me, and it was him, and I was like, and anyway, I passed 0 marks on my report sheet. I still cannot believe I never have to think about that fucking test again. That, if you are waiting to sit your test, or you're preparing, the feeling. It just feels like you're never gonna get there, because it's just, everyone's it's so hard, but you'll get there. I was really happy. This week's video, we are gonna do, I put up on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram if you're not, but I'm gonna presume you are. I put up on Instagram saying, what do you want me to do this week? I'm gonna do a sit down chatty video, because I have a lot going on at the moment. I'm going away in a week tomorrow, Monday. I'm going away for a week to Italy with 2 of our friends, and Evan, obviously, and I don't know if I'll get to vlog this week. I might vlog when I'm over there. I haven't really. Let me know if you like those travel videos. I like making them, but if you don't like them, I won't vlog it or whatever. But we are going away to the south of Italy, so I don't have really the chance to do much vlogging, because I'm not really doing much other than working. Last week was pretty slammed. Most people voted on my poll. I said, what type of video do you want me to do? And the majority of people, a huge majority of people, said they want me to do a sex and relationships Q&A, and I have to say I was very happy that that's what won, because I miss talking about that, you know. Obviously I co-hosted It Gals for a long time, and that is like kind of all I would talk about all the time. And I miss talking about it. I miss talking about sex and relationships and giving advice to people. And although I'm obviously, I don't know, I'm not like an expert in everything, I have done this for a long time. There was 4 years of my life where like we gave advice pretty consistently on the internet to people. So I think I have heard like such a large range of issues in relationships, and I have a pretty good like finger on the pulse of what is common for women in their, specifically in their maybe like mid to late 20s, early 30s, issues that they will go through in their sex and relationships at that time, at that age, you know. So let's see, question numero uno, while I still have half my face done. This Amy Connolly stuff is so nice, isn't it? Okay, number one, thoughts on long distance. My boyfriend might be getting a job in London, but I know he's the one. Okay, so long distance absolutely can work, I think. And especially now that we have like FaceTime and, you know, video calls, and people are working remotely, people aren't in the office as much. Definitely can. Especially London to me is like barely long distance. Like, I think the biggest thing that impacts a long distance relationship would be time difference, because you're kind of like, I know from a few friends that who've done long distance, and they kind of always seem a bit like distracted, because they're kind of like, oh, it's like 4 o'clock at home, like I have to, you know, FaceTime him, and it can just kind of be on your mind all day. So if someone's in London, like, obviously the physical distance is there, but at least you don't have the like time difference where you're like kind of stressing about like making sure that you're in touch the right times and not missing video chats and all that kind of stuff. The thing that I think is the biggest not issue for long distance, but like what you have to figure out, what makes long distance successful in my opinion, is having an end date or having a plan. Like, I think that you can definitely do a long distance relationship, but if you have to have certain plans in place, whether they're short term, whether it's like, okay, I'm going to come visit you on this time, or like at summer, you know, for summer when I'm not in college or whatever, I'll come and live in London, or, you know, eventually there'll be a plan for us to live either in Ireland or live in London or whatever it is. And if you know someone is like the one, or like you definitely can see like a future with this guy, like I think that is a make or break. It's like, okay, if you see a future with the guy, then the two of you have to sit down and talk about the reality of your future. And not everything is always going to be a very easy 50-50 split. Like if he has been given like a once in a lifetime opportunity, or if he's been given an opportunity that will, like, you know, progress his career, and maybe you don't, and I'm just speculating here, I don't know, but like maybe you don't really have that figured out yet, like it could be up to you to compromise and go, okay, I'll try and make London work for a while, and then you can always go back to the drawing board, and like he mightn't like it, you mightn't like it, but I think that like 100% long distance can work, and it's not as hard as it used to be. But I think having plans in place is what's going to make it either successful or not. Because if it's just like, I'm moving to London, full stop, and we're gonna still go out, it's like no, like we're trying to build a life together, we're trying to like get on the same page, and it's a good test for your relationship, I think, for the future. How to break up with someone who you still love, but you know deep down it's not enough. Okay, I've been here. I think a lot of us have been here, and it's really hard, and I think a lot of people don't talk about how hard it is to break up with someone sometimes, because of course it's like, it is harder being broken up with, but like making that decision is very hard, and you can feel very alone in a relationship when you are like kind of doubting it, and it can be very scary. I know that feeling where you're like, oh my god, am I just kind of getting like cold feet? Is this just like, is this normal? Because like I think it can be normal to a certain extent to always kind of second guess yourself, not second guess yourself, but like question your relationship and go, is this making me happy? Like that's a healthy way to be. And I haven't done that in the past, and then what's happened is like I've found myself like, I come to a conclusion very quickly where I'm like, oh my god, I'm not happy at all, and I don't want to be with this person. So it's scary, but I think what you have to do, if you want to break up with them, it's fucking hard, it's never going to be easy, but what you have to do is prioritize their own feelings in that way, because you have to be like, right, it might be shit for me to have to break up with someone. But like the thing is if you're even doubting it to that extent where you're really like, I don't think I want to be with him, he deserves more. That's how I always thought of it, where it's like, okay, even like I don't want to be in a relationship with someone who's unsure about being in a relationship with me. I would prefer them to be like, look, I'm really confused. I don't know where this relationship's going. I'd be like, okay, see you later, because I want someone who knows they want to be with me. And I think you would probably do too, and most people do. So you have to just communicate those feelings, and like, you know, just because you're breaking up with someone, like, you know, they're probably going to take it badly. It's never nice to be broken up with. It's always very stressful, and it's always a bit of a blow to the ego. And it can be a surprise too, right? Where you're like, what? I thought we were fucking happy, and now all of a sudden, like, you're like, how long did this go on for? It's always a shock. So you have to allow them to kind of process it in their own way. If it is that saying, if you love someone, let them go. And if you are not sure that you want to be with someone, I think the best thing you can do is just communicate that with them. Be like, I'm having doubts about the relationship, and I want to be open about that to you. I obviously care a lot about you. And I think at the end of the day, I always say to any of my friends going through relationships, like, or going through breakups, it's horrific, it's traumatic, but it happens all the time. People do it all the time. People break up in relationships. It's not the worst thing in the world to happen. It can feel like the end of the world when you're in it, for sure. And it's horrific, and it's very traumatic, and your whole life can turn upside down, blah, blah, blah. We all know, we've all been there. But at the same time, it's not anything new. Like, you'll get through it. Not that everything has to be compared to the worst case scenario, but at the end of the day, like, a breakup, okay, grand. We know the process on this. And I think just remind yourself that in the long run, like, you also deserve happiness, and you shouldn't have to stay with someone just because you, like, feel bad about possibly hurting them. It's like, what's going to hurt them more is the long run of you guys growing resentful, or you growing resentful towards him, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm with my boyfriend for 4 years. We've just bought a house, but I'm still not over my ex. What do I do? Ooh, okay. I heard something this week that rang very true to this question, I feel. If it's a long time after your relationship, right? Like, we're talking a year. This person, it's 4 years apparently. And you still feel like you're not over your ex in some way, the problem is probably more within you and nothing to do with your ex. As in, it's something that's left unfulfilled from the relationship. Like, it's some insecurity of yours. Maybe you have, like, I don't know, maybe you just have, like, not an issue, that sounds so, like, serious, but, like, maybe you just have, like, maybe there's an insecurity there that's not being met, or maybe there's something unresolved within that relationship that, you know, is still kind of triggering you to feel like, to project those emotions onto the relationship or your ex-partner. It probably isn't them, because they're a whole different person now. You know, we're talking 4 years. You're probably a different person now. Where did I put my contour stick? So it's not really them, and it's probably not the relationship. It's something unanswered within you. So I would just try and do a little bit of soul searching. Obviously, I'm presuming you're, like, happy with your new partner as well. Like, you just bought a house, but is it just that, like, you know, try and ask yourself what it is. Is it just that you kind of think, like, oh, what if about the old partner? I think that's quite normal. Or is it that, you know, did they cheat on you? Do you have, like, maybe some kind of complex around that? Like, is there what is it? You have to ask yourself, okay, if it's not him, because it probably isn't him, because I've been able to find a new partner and be happy and move on and buy a house. What is it about the relationship that still has me kind of holding on to it or feeling like I'm not over it? And the answer is probably more so within you and your own issues within relationships. So I think try and remove your ex from the situation and from, like, what you're thinking of. Like, remove them as a person and just think about you in the relationship, and what is it about, like, is it something in yourself that you miss in that relationship? You know what I mean? Any advice on dating in the current climate without using dating apps? I hate them. I got a few people about this. I have never used a dating app because when I was single, when I was much younger, There's a lot of discourse about dating apps. I have, as I said, I've never used one. I obviously met Evan through work. My ex, I met him through, well, we went to college together, but we didn't really know each other. But I kind of met him through Tumblr, which is mad. I don't think I've ever said that before, but we just like followed each other and then started talking. So I guess we met kind of more on social media. So I think that like, there's a lot of, I always hear a lot of people be like, you have to use dating apps, like get over yourself. No, you don't. Like, and I get it. Like, it's the majority way that people are meeting each other now. But like, if you are maybe more like me, which I kind of presume you might be, if from the sounds of it, you're maybe a little bit more introverted and you don't really love like just like putting yourself out there. I don't think I'd be great on a blind date like that, like meeting someone on Tinder or whatever. I'd get a lot of anxiety over like meeting up with someone like that. No judgment to anyone who does it. It's just not, I'm not great at it. So I don't think it would, what would make me anxious is like, I don't think I'm giving off the best first impression for someone I've just met. Anyway. So I think that there's loads of other ways. I think that you just have to put yourself out there a little bit more. If you feel this way, a lot of other people feel this way. And there's definitely other guys or girls or whoever the fuck you want to date out there who are not into dating apps. And this is how we dated for a long time beforehand. So you just have to do the usual things, I think. I think it's like all about like hobbies, maybe like I always feel like gyms and stuff, if you're into training, are always like a pretty good way of meeting new people. Just think of it as like trying to put yourself out there to make new friends, and then it could end up that you're going to meet someone who you might find attractive, you might go on a date with, whatever else. Try and put yourself in more like social positions, get hobbies, even if it's just like, I don't know, meeting new people on social media, like, you know, the way you can meet someone in a gym and then you end up following each other on Instagram and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I think just follow what your interests are, like whether you're into hiking or training or cooking or whatever the fuck it is, and find ways to like practice that as a hobby. And I think you will naturally attract people with similar interests. But maybe it's just about like putting yourself out there a little bit more on like your Slack channel, and like, even if, you know, trying to organize some work nights outside of the work from home office, like things like that, where you can meet colleagues, you can meet people in and around your own age or with different similar interests. Like, it's just going to be a little bit more proactive and a little bit more work. But I think that it definitely can happen. Like, I think it's ridiculous to think that like the only thing that you can do now is dating apps. I think anyone who is saying that is a bit myopic in their worldview, because a lot of people I know use dating apps, and I've known loads of people who have actually found like long-term partners on Tinder and shit. Fucking brilliant. It clearly works for some people, but it doesn't work for a huge cohort of other people, and all of those people are not on the dating apps too. So if you feel this way, someone else is going to feel this way. I just think you have to be a bit more proactive, and probably, which if you are a bit more introverted like I am, it's tough, because you're like, oh, I have to probably put myself out there a little bit more. Like, I have to probably approach people, and don't be afraid to approach guys as well, you know, like chat to them. Just don't put yourself down about dating apps. And if you haven't tried them and you just feel like you would hate them, do try them. I think like with dating, you just have to put yourself out there and you have to try a bit of everything. But if it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's okay. And you're just going to have to be a little bit more proactive. Oh, I love this one. How to balance dealing with someone's faults, for example, nobody's perfect, versus settling or accepting less than you deserve. The line seems to be blurred sometimes. Very interesting. Oh yeah, and she went on to say, like, for example, paying for shit when working but not married. Should you go half and half, or should guys treat you? Something I heard a long time ago about relationships is the following, and I'm going to try and not butcher this. In relationships, you should never have expectations, but you should have standards. Nailed it. There is a difference. It is a fine line, as you said, difference between expectations and standards, but I'll try and explain with an analogy of, for me, how they're different. So let's use your situation of who is paying for dinner. A standard is more around like how you want someone to treat you, how you want someone to view you, seeing you as an equal, but also maybe wanting to treat you because they love you or care for you. An expectation is going into a date expecting that you should be paid for because you're younger, prettier, a woman making less, whatever it else is. I think there's another saying, like, expectations are, let me look it up. It's a good saying. Here we go. Expectations are resentments waiting to happen. So fucking true. If you are in a relationship or a dating situationship, or you're just dating yourself, if you expect men, or whoever you're dating, to like treat you like a princess and pay for everything, like, you're just gonna be resentful when that doesn't happen. Expectations to me very much rely on like maybe material things, or they're very ego driven. Like, it's like, I expect to be like, you know, a man I expect every guy I date to drive, and I expect him to have his own house and to have like make 100 grand a year or whatever. It's like, that's only to do with your ego and like you wanting to resolve something in a relationship that maybe you're lacking, or you couldn't be bothered doing yourself. Maybe like, this could be controversial, but like, a standard is like, okay, my standard of men is like someone who is driven, someone who sees me as an equal, someone who respects me, someone who would like to treat me, someone who treats me as well as I treat them. That's it. That's a standard. And if you have to hold a standard yourself as well, that's the key, because you can't hold standards for someone else that you don't have for yourself. So if you hold yourself to a standard of treating people with kindness and respect, and like, you know, a lot of girls I see, like, you know, paying for dinner. It's like, how often do you pay for his dinner? You know what I mean? You definitely don't have to, but like, how can you have a standard or really an expectation on someone else that you wouldn't fulfill yourself? And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Like, of course, people make different money in relationships, and however I think you figure that out in your own relationship is up to you. But I just don't think there should ever be an expectation on one person to like foot the bill just because you're in a different situation. Like, I think that relationships at the end of the day have to be, you have to see each other as equals, even if there's certain disparities in like maybe your income or, you know, where you're living or whatever. Like, who knows? Life happens, right? And you're not always going to meet someone who's on the exact same level as you. Very fucking rare. But I think that you just have to be able to like hold yourself to the same standard, and that's the difference between standards and expectations. I think expectations do build resentment. I think if you expect someone to be showering you with gifts or paying for everything, it just is going to make them resent you, because they'll pick up on it. Like, people pick up on things like that, you know. And I think you can have high standards. Your standards are completely different, and expecting unrealistic things. And also, a lot of the times, like, if you are expecting something in a relationship, ask yourself why. Like, is it because your friend has some boyfriend who pays for everything? Like, you know, that's real ego based. That's real you being like, oh well, like, I don't want to be the only one in the relationship with my friend group who's like not getting brought to like Michelin star restaurants. It's like, that at the end of the day, like, it's nice, don't get me wrong, and everyone deserves to be in that kind of situation once in their life, because it's fun, like having a guy bringing you to these beautiful restaurants or bringing you away. But like, it really means fuck all at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't actually fucking mean anything. It doesn't mean they're happier. It doesn't mean that like they are in a better relationship than you. Like, you know what I mean? It's all bullshit at the end of the day, and it's all very like ego based. So I think if you're finding it hard to figure out whether you are having expectations or whether you are you have standards, or whether something is a standard or something is an expectation, ask yourself why you want that. And if it goes back down to like an ego thing, then, you know, maybe second guess it. And there's ways, as I said, of like, a standard is like, as I said, how someone treats you. That's how I would like define it. That's how I would, you know, a standard is like, because you hold yourself to a certain level of code of behavior, you expect someone who you are seeing to also abide by the same code. But expectations is definitely, from my experience, and we all have been there as well, it's not a judgmental thing. I think you just have to clock it when you're like, okay, I'm being a little bit unfair. Because like, it's the same as like some guy being like, you know, my standards are girls who are like a size 8 and, you know, can do this, this and that for me. It's like, that's not a standard, babe. That's a fucking expectation. A standard is like how it's more human level. It's like, it doesn't matter on the gender. It's just like how you want to be treated, how you want the person to act in the world. And then that reflects back on your relationship and how happy you are in the relationship. So that's my rant on that. But I think it's a great question. So thank you for that one. How to have mature conversations about engagements or long-term relationship. My boyfriend is 2 years younger than me. Sometimes I feel like he's not thinking of these things. That's really hard. And that's where like dating, like age-wise, does come into things. Like I obviously don't think age is the biggest thing in the world, but I think that like there are certain things in relationships that kind of sometimes make you be like, oh, I'm dating someone younger. Especially when you're a woman. I'm not saying that all women want this at all, but like I think sometimes you get to a certain age when you're like 28, maybe 29, you're kind of like, okay, you kind of just start thinking, do I want kids? You know what I mean? You do naturally, some women do naturally just start to think that if they're going to think of that, they're going to think of that around that age, I think, usually. You might not have the answer, but it's something that you want to be able to bring up in your relationship. And it can be tough especially if I went out with someone younger and like if they're 2 years younger than you, they kind of think like, oh, we've all the time in the world. And you're like, well, I actually, don't. It's not a sexy conversation to have to be like, my fertility, but it's a real conversation. And I think it's normal for someone a bit younger to at first be like, what are you on about? And a bit like, because I was probably like that when I was 26. But I think if they respect you, they'll listen to you. And, you know, there's no easy way of bringing that shit up, but I think that if you're met with a lot of, from experience, if you're met with a lot of resistance on a certain topic like engagement or marriage or children or progressing the relationship, it could just be a sign that their emotional maturity is like lacking in that area. And you just have to ask yourself, which is fine, like that happens, people mature at different levels, but you just have to ask yourself, okay, am I along for the ride? Like, am I okay sticking around in this relationship for another 4 years? And then he all of a sudden decides like, oh, I actually don't want to get married, and you do. So you have to ask yourself what you want, and try bring it up as best you can. And just bring it up casually, you know, it doesn't have to be a big fucking sit down thing. Like if you're watching something, you can be like, would you think you'd ever want to get married someday? Like I think Evan asked me, did I want kids on our first date? You know what I mean? Thoughts on getting back with an ex, can it work? It definitely can. Like it can work. I've just 100% been people that I've known that have broken up with someone, gotten back together. You know, they probably went off, dated other people and realized, oh, actually, I want to be with my ex, you know, and that happens, people. It does. Is it rare? I think so. I think a lot of the time when people get back with their ex, it is out of like kind of comfort, and that's really what like the whole like getting back with your ex is, because like the first time you break up with someone especially and you're back on that dating scene, it can be horrific, and you're like, oh, like I don't know what I'd fucking do if I was single now. To be honest, I'd be fine. Like I'd be grand. I know I'd be grand, but like I also wouldn't be looking forward to it. No shade to single people, but I think that that's normal as well, especially if you've been in a long-term relationship. But I think you just have to be in it for the right reasons, and you have to also not hold resentments towards each other of what happened when you were single. Like, because if you just start bringing that in, it's just going to be a shit show. Like, you have to treat it like a new relationship. Unfortunately, it's not going to feel like a new relationship though. Like, you're not going to change someone overnight just because they were single for 6 months or 3 months or however long it was. You know, you're gonna have the same issues in the relationship probably. Like, a lot of the times I've seen people be like, you know, oh, we're just gonna take things casually, and I'm like, bitch, you dated for 4 years. Like, you're gonna go right back to that 4-year point. Hi, Elle. You probably are just gonna go back to that point in your relationship that you were at before. You're just gonna slip back into the comfort, and that can be the nice thing too. But I think if you're gonna get back with each other before you decide finally with him or her, you need to be like, okay, what do we want from this? Are we going full in? Like, you know, we broke up because I don't know, we found it hard to live together. How are we going to sort that out? How, like, what were the issues? You know, you have to be very pragmatic and realistic and try and not get washed up in the whole like honeymoon phase of like, oh, we're back together and we just love each other so much. Because in 2 weeks, bitch, you're going to be having the same fights you were having 6 months ago. So have the conversation. If he wants to get back with you, he will have that conversation with you, and it could be very successful. My partner and I both want to emigrate, but work in different fields, and we'll meet career goals if we move to separate places. I'm okay with that, but he won't compromise. So from that, I'm getting like, you both need to move to different cities, and you are okay with moving, like being separate for a while, or he won't compromise on where to move. Look, to finite details of where someone has to be in their life, blah, 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 can always be ironed out. The most frustrating thing about those situations are when someone is unwilling to compromise. Like, that is what a relationship is. A relationship is compromising, and that's the best thing about being single. You don't have to fucking run shit by anyone. You are living on your own time. You are doing what you want, when you want. But when you're in a relationship, you ain't single, bitch, and you have to start compromising. Like, you know, I want to live in Ireland. I love living in Ireland. If Evan came to me and was like, here, like, I've got a huge career opportunity in London or whatever, you know, we might have to move there for a year or two. It's not exactly on my list of places I want to live, but like, of course, like if I was able to do it, I would do it. And there would be a compromising and there would be a conversation around it. But like, at the end of the day, if you're in a relationship with each other, like, that's what you're getting. That's what you're signing up for. You're signing up for like compromising your life and like, you know, not doing things only on your own terms. I mean, maybe it could be a good idea to do long distance and move different places and see, you know, if your lives are going to be aligned and if you're going to be like on the same level as each other, I feel like you will come back to one another. But your relationship is, and how important your career is, like, what are you prioritizing in your life right now? Like, are you at the age where you're like, I actually just really want to be focusing on my career? You know, don't, like, it's like The Hills, you know, don't be Lauren who didn't go to Paris just because her stupid fucking crackhead boyfriend wanted her to stay in like some kip in Malibu for the summer. Like, don't compromise your own success for someone who wouldn't compromise their own for you. Even if it's just looking into other opportunities. Like, if you want to move to fucking Stockholm and he wants to move to London, like, can he not just look at Stockholm for a second and see if there's anything there for him? I don't know. But also, are you compromising at all? Are you also having that conversation? Like, or maybe you're just like at a fork in the road in your relationship, you know? I feel like I'm telling everyone to dump their fellas, but like, you know. Okay, so do you believe in second chances? My partner kissed someone while drunk. And the next one was actually not said, this person who wrote in said, not a question, but from my own experience, relationships can still work after cheating. So they were literally right after each other. So I think that's kind of serendipitous. Second chances, it's a tough one. It is a fucking tough one. I do not believe in that saying, once a cheater, always a cheater. I don't believe in that at all. I think that cheating can happen for a lot of different reasons. I think it can depend on your relationship. I think it can depend on your, like, you know, even if someone doesn't have, like, even if you're not in a like very specifically open relationship, you might have a bit more of a blurred boundary in that way, where it's like, I don't know, I've known relationships, I've been in relationships like that where it's kind of like what you do in your own time is up to you, and that a lot of people don't understand that. But if it sounds more like you are in a very strictly monogamous relationship and your fella went out and snogged someone, to me it's never the actual act of the kissing. It's more just like, for fuck's sake, like, it's the respect and the lack thereof, should I say. I believe in second chances, which could be a controversial thing to say. I believe in second chances when it's like almost a more serious situation of cheating. Like, maybe you guys have been in a relationship for a long time and you haven't been seeing eye to eye, and you know that, okay, yes, it's like, although I'm enraged that you cheated, we have been feeling distant, and we have not been like on the same level, and we haven't been having sex, we haven't been having any intimacy. So it's not so much that you can like forgive it easier, but you can be like, I can see why you went and tried to seek like affection from someone else. Maybe did he come and tell you this? Like, is he like really distraught and very upset about it, and like is it something that he's like, you know, owning up to being wrong about? Or is it like, did you find out and he's like, oh sorry, you know what I mean? It all just depends on like, I mean, I think it's always a sign of disrespect, right? But I do think that cheating is way more common than people let on. I think a lot more people do it than they'd like to admit, and I think a lot more people have been cheated on than they would like to admit. And I think that it ends more relationships than also people admit, because like no one wants to admit they were cheated on, and no one really wants to fucking admit that they cheated. It's not exactly something that you're like shouting from the rooftops. Not personally been in the situation, but I've seen the situation where someone has cheated on someone else, and it almost like it showed them maybe a fault in their own relationship, and it also showed the person who cheated that like that other person was for them, and they felt so bad. So I think it's more about the apology and how it was dealt with, and how you found out, and how open about it he has been. I think follow your gut. I think if it's been something that you've been like suspicious of for a while, and then it ended up becoming true that he did it, like it's like, for fuck's sake, why are you proving me right about this? But you have to follow your own gut, and I think your gut doesn't lie in a lot of these situations. Use your intuition. If you feel like it's something that was completely stupid and drunken, and maybe you weren't that serious at that time in your relationship, like if you want to forgive it, forgive it. I think that's the best thing. Like, trust your gut. But if you feel like he's just trying to convince you to forgive him, and you're like, oh fine, I'll give you a chance, maybe not. But sometimes you just have to try it and see, and don't feel guilty if it's an absolute no for you. Like if he's trying to convince you, like, and you want to end it, like, nah. I keep drunk texting a guy I work with, and I've slept with before. I don't like him at all, but as soon as I have a drink, it's like a compulsion I have. Do I just want the attention? I used to do this so fucking much, guys, when I was single. Oh my God. If there was a guy who had the slightest bit of interest in me, I wouldn't even really be into him. But the second I had a few drinks in me, I'd be like texting them, and it's so annoying when you wake up the next day and you see you were texting them and you're like, why did I do that? I don't even care. And the answer is absolutely yes. You just want the attention. It's unfortunate. You were just looking for external validation. There's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. But it just depends on how embarrassed you are around it. Like if you don't give a fuck, like there's been guys that I've drunk texted and I've been like, who gives a fuck? I don't care that I was like randomly horny texting them last night. But if this guy's in your work and you don't really want that to be, you know, a common occurrence. What I used to do, so here's a tip. I'll give you an actual tangible tip. I used to give my phone to my friend Leanne. Me and my friend Leanne would do this, actually both of us would do this for each other, because we were both kind of drunk texters. I'd give her my phone. I'd either give my phone sometimes, or sometimes I'd delete the guy's number, give her the number, and then I'd have to, like, if I wanted to text him, I'd be like, can I have his number? And she'd be like, no, bitch. So it was kind of like a buddy system. And there was times where like I'd give her my actual phone, and like I'd be like, can I have my phone? And she'd be like, why? And I'd be like, I want to text Brian, or whatever the fuck, some guy that I was like not even seeing, probably slept with once and didn't even really like that much. And she'd be like, no, bitch, you're not texting him. So that's usually a good like honesty policy with a friend. It's horrific though. The drunk texting, it's so embarrassing. You're like, why did I think this would be a good idea? Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Me and my ex split in January. We talk every single day and had sex twice, and we're sending saucy videos a lot. We're more open than ever, but I'm stuck between we're meant to be and stop. Okay, this to me sounds like breakup 101. You did not give yourself the space to be actually broken up with. I do think that sometimes you can have a breakup, or you can like go through a breakup with someone and be single for 6 months, as I said, and then end up being drawn back to each other and getting back together and being happy. I 100% think that can happen. But I think in order for that to work, you have to go through a very healthy breakup, as in I'm 100% all for, and I just think it's essential in a breakup, a no contact policy for a period of time. It does not have to be forever. Nothing in this world has to be permanent. But I think that in order for you both to really experience what it's like to not have each other, not use each other as an emotional crutch or a sex kind of crutch or a sexting or an ego kind of based like external validation of someone fancying me, even if that no contact period is just for a month, you need to see what life is like 100% without them. That's why you're breaking up, or that's why he broke up with you. Like, you can't be like hanging on to someone if they dumped you, say for example. You just can't be using each other for that, because you're not experiencing being single, and you're probably ignoring all the reasons why you broke up. You're just using each other because you might be a little bit sad or lonely, and that's completely normal, but you need to feel those things in a breakup. So that's not to say that you guys can't get back together or shouldn't or aren't meant to be, but I think your gut to stop is really what needs to happen. I think you both need to have a conversation, acknowledge what you're doing, because sometimes you're in those situations and you're like, we haven't even acknowledged the fact that like we are still sexting each other and we broke up 6 months ago. No, you need to text him or call him and, you know, or see him and be like, this needs to stop. I think we both know it needs to stop. It doesn't mean that I don't care about you, but like, we broke up for a reason. I need to see what it's like to be without you. And just you can even like, I've done it in past relationships before. We've gone on breaks or breakups and like it's been like, okay, we're gonna have a month of no contact and we'll see each other in a month. Like, have a date in the diary that you can talk to each other from, and meet again. And like, that has always been very healthy for me in breakups, because like we've then met up, and even though like the breakup was so horrific and traumatic and we were both so sad, you meet up in a month and you're like, do you know what, we're actually okay. We're okay, we still love each other, we still care for each other, but being single is the right decision. Or sometimes it shows you the opposite, you know? And that's just life. But you do need to figure out your time alone, and I think you know that deep down as well. So that's why you wrote to me. So stop. We'll finish on this one. Advice on making more than your partner, lending, planning trips, etc. And then they also said, which I think has something to do with this question, it's the second question box, my partner wanting to return to change jobs or retrain, but they're not making it happen. Can I help or stay out? Okay, so it sounds to me like you're struggling with your partner maybe being in the talking, like maybe he's all talk, no action. That's annoying. I find all the men can be like that. Like, I've dated guys like that where you're like, you fall for the kind of like chat of them being like, I'm going to be so successful. And that's really attractive at the beginning, because you're like, oh, he's so confident. But after a while, you're like, where's the success? And look, again, standards versus expectations. I struggled with that a lot in a past relationship where I was like, I feel like I'm putting unfair standards on someone. It takes some people longer than others to get their career on track, and that is fine. But at the same time, my standards were more just like, I need someone who can acknowledge when something's not working. I need someone who, if they are unhappy in a job and they're moaning about it, make the change. Be confident in your decisions. Of course, not everyone's career paths are going to go like the same as everyone else's. Like you, as you said, you're apparently making more than your partner. That can bring up weird things, you know, as you said, like wanting to go out for dinner, like planning trips. And it's awkward when you're like paying for trips. And like, I've done that before, where you're like booking a holiday and the place that I want to stay, they can't afford. And maybe, you know, you're not in the position where you can afford to fucking bankroll the whole trip as well, and that's also unfair. I think, like, I don't think that there should always be this expectation of like one person to pick up the whole bill just because they've got a fucking better job. But I think it's just compromise, you know, and like finding somewhere that you're both happy with. And if you want to pay a little bit more for a nicer room because you can, then great, but do it out of, you know, wanting to share something together. Don't do it out of like a resentful thing. Or it's tough when someone is, you know, as you said, they maybe want to change career or retrain. That's admirable. Like, you know, when someone is like, I want to change career because I'm not happy, like, to me, that's like an attractive quality, because you're like, you know what you want. And like, this happens, people. But what's unattractive is someone acknowledging that and staying in the situation and still complaining and not having the balls to retrain. And look, you are going to be your best fucking partner, and obviously encourage them and let them know that you'll be there to support them. And yes, it might be hard financially for like a year or two, but overall it's the better choice, right? It's gonna enrich your lives in the future. But like they're the only one who can take that step. And if it is something that's unattractive to you, which it kind of sounds like, they might just need to kick up the arse from you, to be honest. Some people, I'm good at actually knowing what I want, but I can be a bit hesitant, like starting something if it's putting myself out there. And like Evan's really good at being like, Jenny, get your fucking shit together and go do it. I need someone sometimes to kick me up the arse. So maybe they need you just to fucking kick them up the arse a bit and be like, look, you've got it. You can do it. You could fucking retrain. You can make way more money. And soon you'll be taking me on the fucking fancy ass trip to Bali and paying for the executive suite, you know? It can just be a bit of imposter syndrome or anxiety, but it's acknowledging when that becomes a like, okay, we're just all talk, no action here. Like we need to, you know, get shit moving. Okay, I think that's enough. I've been talking for a very long time. As I said, let me know if you want an Italy vlog. I will try. As I said, I'm away with people. I'm also very conscious that it's their vacation too. They might not want a fucking camera in their face all times. But if you liked the Dubrovnik vlog, it could probably be something similar to that. I don't know if I'll be back next week with a YouTube video. It depends on how much I get done this week, but subscribe. I'll talk to you all very soon, and thanks for all the questions. Bye.